Happy Saturday, my betting NHL degenerates. We got a 14-game betting board that Steele and I are fired up to break down on the latest Saturday special of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. But we're not stopping there. Are the Oilers doomed? Who steps up with the absence of McDavid and Draisaitl? We'll break it all down for you in 30 minutes or less. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, baby. The NHL playoffs are looming. Races across the league are tightening, and we hope your team is in tip-top form. Welcome back inside the lab, everybody, to the Saturday edition of your daily 30-minute source for fantasy hockey, NHL breakdowns, and all of the bets you need. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Shout out to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers to FanDuel get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 wager hits. Steele, for a number of reasons, not just because my voice is cooked, we're going to try and keep today extra short and sweet. You know, the winery reservations have to be kept. So,
big weekend.
There is a lot going on in the NHL. I always say that, but it's always true, especially at this time of year. Draisaitl, McDavid, you and I haven't spoken about this. This is headline news, but this is also a major obstacle for fantasy GMs out there to clear. I want to talk about it with you. The playoff picture, we're going to continue to update it. Blue Jackets losing, Caps clinch, Ovi 7 goals short. Let's get to it all, including our Saturday bets. Over to you, my friend. Hit me with your take on the Edmonton Oilers. What are you seeing, and what do you think goes down?
Well, it's not going to be a fun week for the Edmonton Oilers, and it's not going to be a fun week for any GM out there who has Leon Draisaitl, who has Connor McDavid, especially as we get into the Fantasy Hockey League playoffs right now. So that, for me, is a big concern. In terms of people stepping up, I really don't know who is going to step up. Besides Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, who both lead the team in points, 90 and 101. The next guy in line is Evan Bouchard with 54 points in 69 games. Offensively, this team runs through those two guys. So It's not like they have the toughest schedule without this next week without Draisaitl and McDavid in the lineup. They've got Seattle Kraken twice, the Dallas Stars, Calgary Flames, San Jose, Vegas. There's a few tough matchups in there, but without those two players, Edmonton is going to be it's going to be tough for them. And again, with Stuart Skinner still not on his tippy toes, not on his best performance right now. I know he's been better the last couple of games, but regardless of that, without them helping in the defensive zone, I think it's going to be a struggle with them. So, you know how I felt about Stuart Skinner since the Four Nations face-off.
For sure.
Losing your best two players. It's going to be a tough battle. I mean, they're not going to lose a playoff spot. I mean, the Pacific Division, the top 3 teams are pretty much solidified at this point. But having that second place ahead of the LA Kings is going to be crucial. And again, with the last 10 to 12 games of the season, they can't afford to be missing they can't afford to be missing 1-point games or afford to be losing these 2-point games. So it's going to be an uphill battle without Draisaitl and McDavid, of course.
There's a few ways that I'd like to take this, and the first one is to touch on your point about Stuart Skinner, because if you are a GM that's really held down Stuart Skinner because of the win category and because of the team he plays, no, and I can't fault you for it because of how good the Oilers should be. But this might really expose this guy over the next couple of games, while they are also, he's rocking a 4-6-0 record and an .873 save percentage steal since February 1st. That's ugly. And when you talk about what this also might expose for this Edmonton Oilers team is this is the worst time of the season for this to happen. Sure, obviously. But look at what they butter their bread. Power play. The reason this team has been so lethal is the second you take a penalty, they make you pay. They're 7th in the NHL in power play proficiency. Their power play carried them through the postseason last year along with their penalty kill. And at the end of the day, Steele, they're the 7th ranked team in the NHL in goals for. And if that starts to slip, I think what you're going to see is a team that's very much been insulated by the offense and probably smoothing over a whole lot of inconsistencies that I think might be exposed here. However, I do want to talk about some fantasy value. I can see Adam Henrique, a little flyer here, up on the top line with Hyman. I also like Jeff Skinner. He started to score a little bit, Steele. He's been in the press box a lot, but you're going to have to get a little risky at this point of the season. We've said it. But I think this Edmonton Oilers team is still got some fantasy value to be had on a day-to-day, game-to-game basis with these two out. Minutes have to be eaten. That's a bottom line.
And look, for me, it's tough because I've been saying it for almost the entire season. The guys they brought in have just not been productive. They just haven't. Jeff Skinner, like you said, he's been healthy scratch. Zach Hyman got off to the slowest start.
It's true.
Season that I've seen in a while. Again, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Evan Bouchard defensively has been a liability. Yes, there's opportunity for sure with some of these guys, Adam Henrique, Jeff Skinner, Vasily Podkolzin, and so in the top six. I still think they're going to struggle. I'm not saying they're not going to get theirs. Obviously, the Oilers are still going to be they're going to score goals over the next week without Draisaitl and McDavid, but it's going to be a different team. And don't expect them to jump off the page is what I'm getting. So yeah,
no, that's fair.
You got to take a risk. You got to take a chance on some of these guys. But Adam Henrique, Jeff Skinner, these are guys you don't want to put a ton of faith in.
100%. You're going to have to get a bit greasy. Apologies for the voice. I'm coming in hot. I just want to wrap the point on the Oilers with this before we get to the playoff picture, before we get to bets. Their schedule over the next week and a half. So they got the Kraken tonight, then Stars, Kraken, Flames, Knights, Sharks, Kings, Ducks. Very much a mixed bag, but a schedule that I think probably plays into my angle of some of these Flyers just a little bit. Do they pan out? Do they score? I don't know. Does Stuart Skinner hold it down? Too many question marks right now that I would say if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan at this point of the season, not exactly feeling super easy. However, we'll settle the nerves. I'll try and bring the voice back around after the break because this is the day for hockey betting, the day for hockey degenerates. We got a 14-game board. Excited to talk about it after the break.
Did you know getting a good night's sleep is the #1 recipe for long-term success in life? I didn't. It took me way longer to realize than I'd like to admit. It was years of tossing and turning. I was always tired. I never felt like I could live up to my potential, but not anymore. Thanks to Bear Mattress. I used their sleep quiz and I matched with the Elite Hybrid. It's perfect for side sleepers like me. Now I wake up energized. I'm getting deeper sleeps and I'm ready to attack the day. No matter how you sleep, Bear Mattress has a match for you with a focus on recovery, cooling, and pressure relief to upgrade your sleep and improve your overall quality of life. Go to bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout for 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 40% off site-wide. Bearmattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Flip it. I appreciate all that love and support you
True.
through Friday. And of course, the Saturday specials from time to time. Playoff picture, Eastern Conference. The Washington Capitals clinch a playoff spot.
Yep.
First team to do so this season. 10 to 12 games remaining in the season. Start there. Washington Capitals, Alex Ovechkin, 7 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's record. We're on Ovi watch. I saw that Backstrom's going to be following the Capitals as well. Obviously a long-time friend of Alexander Ovechkin. He's going to be following the Capitals for the chance of seeing this in person. I believe I saw something about Wayne Gretzky might be traveling with the
Ooh,
not with them, but traveling to where they go
I can see it.
when the time comes. Washington Capitals flip. What do you think?
Here's my take on this situation, Steele. This has been a squad that we have regularly mentioned as the team to plunder for fantasy options. There's been so many good ones. And for the most part, Connor McMichael, yeah, hot and cold. Guys like Mangiapane, very hot and cold. But Tom Wilson, Strome, Protas, PLD, Ovechkin, Chikrin, Logan Thompson, even John Carlson a little bit.
Yeah.
That is a team loaded with still very relevant fantasy options. I don't want to beat the Alexi Protas drum anymore, Steele, but throw him into my bowl of boys that I love to talk about. Hashtag Seth Jarvis.
Protas is your boy now, man.
If
Protas
he's
is
still
your
out
boy.
there, go out there and grab him. He's now on the top line, solidified. Fantasy-wise, just before I talk about this team and talk about Ovi quick, fantasy-wise, if you can, grip yourself a piece because they're going to continue to win games. So obviously ownership, and this is probably a very clear-cut take for a lot of GMs out there. Take a look at their schedule. Even with this clinch, I still expect them to go beast while Ovi chases this number. It's a big deal, clearly, and I think this team is going to continue to perform. I want to say this, though, Steele. As much as the year has been a song and dance, it's been good, all of the positives, 100-point season, we have seen this Washington Capitals team squander President's Trophy wins, and I'm not going to necessarily count out the Winnipeg Jets for that trophy. But you've said it yourself just earlier this week, when the calendar flips to playoff hockey, all bets, well, for us are on, but all bets are off in terms of what your regular season meant, right? So there's no goal chasing for Ovi in the playoffs, and we saw how bad they were last year in the first round. Different team, different season. I guess all I would have to say is make sure you can do what you've been doing in the postseason, and then I will be impressed.
Hey, look, they're going to be facing a wild card team, so it's not going to be like they're the wild card team like we saw last year getting swept in the first round. It's a different club right now. The one thing I kind of want to focus on a little bit with this team, we don't have to go in depth, is Logan Thompson. Obviously, it's been a dream scenario, dream season for him. He gets traded from Vegas to Washington, signs a contract mid through the season, and I think we have to take this season. We have to take a step back and look at the full picture. He's been a great goaltender while in the 4 years he's been in the National Hockey League, even as a backup goaltender at times with Vegas.
Yeah.
But this season is off the charts. And I know Connor Hellebuck's been absolutely insane himself, but Logan Thompson has a record of 34-5. He's only lost 4 games in regulation for the Washington Capitals. I think there might be a few GMs out there going into next season that maybe, overreact to this value that Logan Thompson has produced this year, maybe picking him a little bit higher in draft from where he was obviously taken last year. But I would still try to implement that 0G strategy. I think Logan Thompson, he's been great. 917 save percentage, 2.29 goals against average, 2 shutouts, and like I said, 34-5 on the season. I just don't think that's going to happen again next year.
Going to be intriguing. You and I are going to have to start looking at next year's draft already. We're going to have to start looking at all of these angles. As I said ad nauseum, that is how a GM keeps and stays up on the competition, much like you. Maybe a little listener league check-in. Good luck to everyone in their playoffs out there. You know the drill. I got to just end it with this. Shout out to Brock University. Logan Thompson actually played a season at Brock University. Anytime I got to show love to the Niagara region, I will do so, Steele. That year, by the way, he had a 937 save percentage and only lost 4 games in 22 starts. So he's been doing it at every single level is what I'm really trying to say. Speaking of not getting it done, one guy getting it done, one team really killing it. How about a team squandering a really good season for the most part? And what good of a story it would have been, the Gaudreau angle and all of that. But how about just disappointment for the Columbus Blue Jackets? 6 straight losses at the toughest time of the season. For me, there's not a ton to be said here, Steele. It's just I want to continue to update our listeners on what's going on with certain teams, good and bad, because that will really help you make the decisions that affect your lineup on a nightly basis. And right now, the Columbus Blue Jackets are a tough bunch of assets to manage. Really bad performance on Friday night against Sid. Sid, goal and assist, absolutely sensational. Don't need to go down that route, Steele. All I do want to say is I think their goose is cooked. We've talked about Ottawa, Montreal, and the other teams in the mix there. They're not as good as those clubs. Might be really, really careful about how much you're putting into your fantasy pieces on this team right now, because also where they butter their bread in the goal scoring end, they got to step that up too. So little bit of a concern here for a team that was looking real good before, 2-7-1 in their last 10.
Look, they're not completely out of it. 3 points out of a wild card spot still. 1 game in hand on the Montreal Canadiens and Ottawa Senators. What this has highlighted for me is one big thing. And as great of the talent they have up front, Marchenko, Shinnikov, Fantilli, Jenner when he's in the lineup, Monahan when he's in the lineup, and so many, Johnson as well. We've talked about the offensive group for this team. What this has highlighted for me is that the offense runs through Zach Werenski. I mean, it just does. Because when you look at what he's accomplished this season, and especially over the last 6 games on this losing streak of theirs, Werenski only has 1 point in his last 6. If he's not producing offensively, the team's not producing and they're not winning. You look at the defensemen throughout the season this year, Werenski, second in the league amongst defensemen in points, second in the league for goals amongst defensemen right now as well, with 20 on the season. If he's not helping offensively from the back end, shooting the puck, facilitating, getting on the score sheet, this team doesn't really have a good opportunity in the playoffs or even making a playoff spot. And if you go back to a few months ago or even a month ago, I legitimately thought if the Columbus Blue Jackets were able to get into the playoffs, get a playoff spot, a wild card spot, I really thought that Zach Werenski could be up there with Cale Makar for the Norris Trophy this year. And I know it's really he's completely Cale Makar has completely run away with it at this point. But if Werenski was still contributing, still being productive offensively, Columbus wasn't on the 6-game losing streak. If they were in a playoff spot right now, I think there would be some serious conversation of Werenski winning the Norris Trophy if that were going to happen. But right now, Makar has run away with it. I know we're going to probably talk about awards and trophies next week before the regular season ends. For me, Cale Makar has run away with it. But yeah, for me, again, Zach Werenski, it's highlighted that key aspect of the Columbus Blue Jackets game right now. If he's not going, if he's not helping offensively, they're in trouble.
Great point. Also, I know it's a number of years ago now, but imagine they still had Bobrovsky, how different this team might look. I'm just saying, because you're looking at Elvis Merzlikins over the last 6 games, and I know this guy is kind of de facto had to be a number 1 because it's like a goalie graveyard in Columbus since he left. He is 0-5-1 in his last 6, clearly, if they've dropped 6 games. He's rocking an .890 save percentage. I know the team's let him hung out to dry a little bit, but the goaltending is clearly something that this team is going to have to address. Keep that in mind when drafting fantasy pieces on this team, especially in leagues with plus-minus, because something tells me those numbers aren't so pretty. Let's hope our betting numbers are just that, though, Mr. Roden, right after the break.
Saturday special, big time bets coming up next where you can place those bets. That's FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year. FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening almost every single day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app, it's simple, it's easy to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. Absolutely love that. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review for your boys Flip and Steele of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod. Big time bets, 14 games on the schedule for Saturday. I know we're recording. There's already a couple games in action probably starting at 12 o'clock today. Let's get into it. I've got 3 picks. I'm going with a couple of juicy odds here, Flip. So I'm just going to rattle them off.
Give her.
First pick. Avalanche on the puck line against the Canadiens, plus 120 right now. After a pretty significant loss to the Maple Leafs, 2-1 loss to them, they go out to Ottawa, absolutely embarrass them, 5-1. They go out to Montreal now. I think it's going to be more of the same. McKinnon, Makar, Nichushkin popping off. That's my first pick. Avalanche puck line, plus 120. Second pick, Leafs on the puck line, plus 148 against the Nashville Predators in Nashville. Again, I think the same. I think Austin Matthews, even though he might be struggling through injury, he's found his game. Marner, Nylander, Tavares, they're popping off offensively. I absolutely loved it. And it seems like they found their number one goalie going to the postseason. Joseph Wall has slightly edged out Steelers right now. I'm not going to confirm anything. Anyways, Leafs puck line, plus 148 for the second pick. And over to those Ottawa Senators. I'm taking the Senators on the money line, plus 110. Against the New Jersey Devils. I know they've lost the last 2, but they're still 7-2-1 in their last 10. Offensively, they've been pretty good besides that blip on the radar against the Avalanche. Those are my 3 picks. Lock of the night, Avalanche puck line.
So the only thing I would like to point out is how hot those Montreal Canadiens have been. 6-1-3 over their last 10. So I got to show a little love to Les Abatons. However,
8-1-1 for Colorado in their last.
Colorado Avalanche are looking like a team, though, Steele. And immediately after the trades were made, of course, everyone kind of gave them the love, showed them the props due for really balancing out the lineup. But we already said we still liked this team as a sneaky good cup pick. And then they go out and do what they did, and now they're winning. You've got to start paying attention to what's going on in Colorado if you want to be making a little bit of money, because that odd has been dropping. So I'm with you, because my favorite pick of the night, I'll get it out of the way now since we're talking about this game, my lock of the night, Cale Makar anytime assist. Cale Makar leads the NHL in goals by a D-man. He leads the NHL in assists by a D-man. And how about in 8 career regular season games against Les Habitants? 8 assists. Hit me with the Cale Makar anytime assist. Oilers on the money line at home against the Kraken doesn't jump off the page as a sexy pick because of everything we talked about with the big injuries. But how about still a major opportunity for this Oilers team to push for the division, which is huge. Home ice advantage is huge for this team. So I think you're going to see a really gutsy performance from the supporting cast here tonight. And you also know how I feel about this very average Seattle Kraken team. I am never once putting $1 on this team. I'm not buying into it. I see a whole bunch of mid-level forwards, and I'm not buying into the goaltending either. The Oilers are 9-1-1 against the Seattle Kraken in their last 10. Obviously, a number inflated by their 2 big guns. However, I like them at home. Stuart Skinner needs to bounce back. Calvin Pickard needs to be better. And I think this is a great opportunity at home to do just that. Third and final pick, Austin Matthews anytime goal, 20 shots on net, 4 goals in his last 4 games, and in his career against Nashville in 13 career regular season games, 10 career regular season goals. He's been shooting. The confidence is back. Give me Poppy anytime goal as my third and final pick.
Loving the player props. You know I'm going to be throwing in the Cale Makar.
Cale Makar's free money. That one's free money.
It's free money. You know what he does on the back end. He's just absolutely elite. Those are the picks. Those are the lock of the night. Thank you so much for tuning in for the Saturday special Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod for your first listen. For your second listen, please make sure you check out the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. From your boys here, Flip Livingstone and Steele Roden, we wish you good luck with those bets. We wish you good luck with the fantasy hockey playoffs, and we shall see you here again on Monday.
Peace.